This is Back to Back.
Yo, what's up, back-to-backers? This is Willy Joy. Welcome to the show. This is Back to Back. This is my podcast. You're listening to it. As always, feels great to be back with everybody here. If you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome. If your finger slipped and you accidentally hit this podcast when you meant to hit something else, stick around. Check it out. Why not? You already made the commitment. It would just look weak if you went back on it now. I'm just trying to look out for you here. But to all my longtime listeners, welcome back. We have a good one for you today. My guest on the show is Medasin. Medasin's got a brand new album out right now called Irene, and he's about to go on a big headlining tour for this album. That's a big deal, man. Great conversation, such a good interview. I'll tell you all about it in just a second. Before I do, I just want to say that my heart continues to be warmed by all the support I'm seeing out there for this show. I've been seeing a lot of people post about this show, a lot of new listeners who said that it was recommended to them by a friend. The best way you can support this show is by spreading the word. Word of mouth is really how we grow over here. And this is a community show. I make this for everybody out there. I love seeing all the reactions, love seeing what you think of each episode. So much love to everybody out there. Keep spreading the word. Let's keep growing this. We're doing this together, and it's only getting bigger. Don't forget, you can always get in touch with me too. backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address, or you can hit me at WillyJoy or at backtobackpod on all social media. Whatever you want to talk about, let me know what you think of the show. If you need advice, if you want to vent, whatever you want, I'm here for you. Holler. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to this show. Leave us a rating and a review on iTunes if you're listening. That also helps us rise in their charts. And the bonus there is, if you subscribe, you're never going to have to worry about missing an episode again. Each Tuesday, when I post it up, it's just going to get delivered straight to your device. However you listen, it'll just pop up, be there waiting for you. And essentially, every Tuesday, I'm just going to come over and we're going to hang out. It's going to be great. And on the other days, if you feel like you're not getting enough back-to-back in your life, you got to go follow the Back to Bangers Spotify playlist. That's a list that I update every single week with brand new music for myself, from all the guests on this show, and more importantly, I like to throw in some of the music that we talk about in these conversations. So if you hear us mention a song and you're not familiar with it, all you got to do is pop on over to Spotify. The link is going to be in the description of this episode. Check out the Back to Bangers playlist. I'm just chilling back home in Southern California. Last weekend, I was out in Seattle, played an amazing show out there. Such a cool city, man. Really feels like it has its own culture, its own scene. I saw Diamond Pistols out there. He was randomly up there visiting some family. We were actually talking about when we recorded his podcast episode, which if you haven't heard it, you really got to go back and check it. We recorded that in this tiny little apartment in Tokyo. Another episode I've been thinking about a lot this last week is the Destructo episode. Man, if you haven't heard that one, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but take an hour, go check it out. And if you're new to the show, it's really well worth your time to go back, scroll a little down, go into the archives, find some of your favorite artists and listen to those conversations. There are some good ones. And maybe one of the better conversations I've had in a long time is happening today. Medasin. Man, what a great guy. We met up out in Santa Monica at this really kind of hole-in-the-wall studio that Republic owns. You never would have known it was a studio. Kind of just looked like a little rundown building. But the facility was really nice. Shout out to them for letting us record there. That was the first time I had ever met Medasin. It was funny, we walked by each other on the street, not really knowing what the other person looked like. When we were on our way to the studio, I had to grab something out of my car, And then I had to come back, 2 minutes later. And then we had to have one of those awkward conversations like, oh, yeah, that was you. I thought it was you. I didn't say anything because I wasn't sure it was you, but hey, it's you. So that was how we started it off. It was funny. But after that, we clicked right away. I've always been really interested in what he's doing. I think he occupies this really kind of singular space in dance music right now, in electronic music. It's hard to categorize, but it's also instantly identifiable. He's doing some cool shit. We talk about he just put out a new album called Irene, his first debut album. He's going on a headline tour for that album. And make sure you go check him out. Make sure you grab the album. The link to where you can go find all of that is going to be in the description of this episode. He's a really thoughtful guy. It's always nice doing this show when you start a conversation with someone and you realize that they've been thinking about these things too, and you can really get deep into some of these topics. And he was just really open. He started making music at a really young age, very self-directed from what it sounds like. Went through some issues with addiction and depression, came out on the other side, and has this really clear vision for what he's doing. I don't want to go on too long. I want to let you hear it. So let's get into it right now. This is me and Medasin back to back. Let's go.
Talk about fucking not shit going on. Dude, I'm from Dallas.
Didn't Party Thieves live there for a while? Somebody else was living
you know what? Yeah, I heard that recently.
But I don't know if he's from there.
Dude, yeah, I forgot. Someone told me this. I think he lived in the fucking loft complex that I'm living at.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, someone was telling me this the other day. I forgot.
Every time I hear from him, he's living, he was living in Australia for a while.
What?
He's dating a girl out there. He moved there, and then he moved back. He was doing... For a minute, he was living in Asia somewhere. I think he's just one of those wanderer kind of dudes.
I fuck with that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
No, it sounds dope to me.
But yeah, see, that's funny. Party Thieves, I know about Party Thieves. I live in Dallas. We could have been living in the same building. And
right.
I had no idea because no one really, I don't know. The shows there, dude, I got a lot of backlash because I'm going on tour late September. And a headline tour North America, and my agent asked if I wanted to do a show in Dallas, and I straight up said no because it's I'm doing it's weird.
Are you going around it?
Yeah, I'm going to Houston, Austin, and not Dallas, and
right.
People know I'm from Dallas,
right.
and I do have fans there that have been growing, but I mean it's just I am fucking terrified of not. I don't want to say terrified. I mean, I'll humble myself. I'm pretty terrified.
Yeah.
In terms of just people I went to school with being there and not seeing a good show that I want to be able to put on.
Oh, dude, to this day when I play in Chicago, I'm like that. Every single time I'm nervous about it because I know...
Where do you play? Is it Chop Shop that's in Chicago?
Chop Shop is dope. I've been there. I've actually never played there. I'll play at the Mid.
Dude, I think a lot of the reason I don't want to play in Dallas is... Snake Hips.
Yeah.
They're pretty fucking big. They got shit on the radio. They're, I did a couple, I did their Texas dates, I think 2 years ago. They did Dallas, Austin, Houston. And Dallas, yeah, Snake Hips, who ideally should sell far more tickets than I could have at the time.
Right.
And... they played this place in Dallas. I don't know if you've heard of it, called RBC.
No, I don't think I know that.
Dude, it's literally a fucking bar.
Okay.
It's just a bar with a little plank of wood that you stand on.
Yeah.
Bare minimal production, horrific sound. And I mean, it's cool.
Yeah.
If you're just kind of trying to jig with your friend, it's not it's by no means a show,
right, Right.
And then the only other thing, have you heard of Stereo Live?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've been there.
So Stereo Live, and that's more like a soft, hard ticket where it's built-in club nights, so it's might not be the right
you don't know if
crowd
they're
for
there
my...
for you.
Exactly. It'd be one of those, situations where if I'm doing my show... then it might not go over so well because there's a bunch of rave kids there that are which is understandable.
Sure.
So I just don't, I did an AMA on Reddit the other day, and someone asked me this question, like, dude, why the fuck is there not a Dallas date on the tour? And I had to explain all this. I was like, man, I mean, shit.
No, but it makes sense, man. And I think you're smart to be strategic about not doing it until you're sure that it's right. Like I was just talking to Muramasa the other day, and he was saying when he started off in the UK, they were doing very similar kinds of shit where they would do like one show in the one city where they knew it was like going to be perfect.
Right.
They could, small venue, they could sell it out. It could be exactly what he wanted it to be. And then he was like, yeah, the next like 3-4 months, I didn't do anything. Then we did one more show. You know, it was like, that's how he built it up at the start. And you see kind of the result of sticking to that vision with him now is like he can kind of write his own ticket, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, it's like there's like an element of exclusivity if you're not doing that. If you're doing what Muramasa is doing, and if you're not just like playing what the fuck ever, not really thinking about it, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I definitely have a growing fan base in Dallas.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that too, because a lot of times, you know, in your hometown, it's like they don't love you until you leave and come back, you know? I think a lot of artists have that where it's like they'll blow up somewhere else more so than their hometown at first.
Well, yeah, that was me. And Post Malone is a perfect example of that. Like, he doesn't really rep Dallas. I mean, you know, he'll tell you, like, yeah, I'm from Dallas.
Yeah.
Like, but no one really knows or
I don't
gives
think
a
I
shit.
even knew that.
Yeah, he's straight up from Dallas and started off in Dallas. I remember one of the first shows I ever played, I had a buddy, his name's Winston, and he lived in this badass loft in... Yeah, are you familiar with Deep Ellum?
Yeah, I am actually.
In Deep Ellum. And we straight up threw shows. We did 2 shows at just in his loft because it was the coolest venue in Deep Ellum to throw a show, and it was his fucking house. And yeah, Post Malone came through to the first one. That was before he I think I was right when White Iverson was blowing up, so he didn't really move to LA or anything yet. But yeah, it's just funny. Like,
that's wild. So I mean, you'd see him around?
I wouldn't say that was the only time I saw him, and it was, you know, and it was kind of annoying. It was like, Post Malone's here. It was like fucking a swarm around him.
Right, yeah. And at that time, you're like, I don't even know who that is, really.
I mean, I did.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm saying you know the song, but it's like you don't necessarily know.
I don't know what he's about.
Right.
I don't know. He's doing some badass shit.
He
right
is.
Now. I love his shit.
Yeah, I mean, he's proven himself to me at this point.
But he's a great example of like he got the fuck out. He got out of Dallas, and I mean, it was really all SoundCloud. Like, I mean, everyone talks about, dude, SoundCloud was the fucking wave. It was.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I just put shit on SoundCloud, and I was blowing up probably here first in LA, like just via the internet.
Well, because you ended up like networking and collaborating with a lot of other people who were out in California,
That too,
right?
Yep. And even if, not really at the beginning, to be honest. I was just straight up putting stuff out, not properly, not on Spotify, on Apple Music, just only on SoundCloud. Just little beats, and yeah, they were getting, you know.
How were people finding them at the start?
Dude, it's really interesting. It's some very universal shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, I'm sure everyone, if they stop and think about how they got where they are, it's like, wow. But yeah, I was doing these beat battles, and there's this company called iStandard. I don't know if you've heard of them, but shouts out to iStandard. They go around every major city in America, and they do like beat competitions, essentially. It's like they have a panel of judges who have like a lot of credits and shit, like 3 judges, and you bring a USB and you play like 5 beats, 1 minute snippets of each beat, and you just kind of awkwardly fucking stand there while they play.
Right.
And then there's like a little crowd. It's like a show, like, you know, a small crowd for people that give a shit about, you know, beats. And then the judges judge you, and then they have a national one. Like, all the people that got first place from each city go around to the national one at New York.
And there's some prize money or something?
Yeah, you win some stuff, but it's mainly it's just cool to think about because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what to do. I'd just been making beats since I was like 12, and I knew I wanted to do something.
Since you were 12, really?
Yeah. So, like, yeah, my older brother got FL, and I was just super into it. I just obsessively started making beats when I was super young. And
what were you listening to at that time? Like, what, you know, I think about what I was doing at 12, and it was nowhere near that.
I'd say I got into it at 12. I started around like 14, 15, 16 when like Chief Keef and shit was coming out. I was super into like trap beats and shit. So I was making a lot of trap beats.
That makes sense. Like that youth energy, I feel like is kind of universal.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, like every generation has that one sound or that artist that I think, even if kids don't end up making that exact sound, it's that energy that inspires them.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just wanted to be ignorant with my fucking friends and fucking smoke kush to trap beats. You know what I'm saying?
right.
It was more just fun than anything. But I mean, I was taking it. I had no idea what I was doing. It's just interesting to think about because I know a lot of people now that are older and they're really good at making music and they don't really know what to do or they overthink what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So there's definitely power in being so young and like passionate and just oblivious.
Dude, 100%.
I was like, I standard? Cool. That's a beat competition? That's sick. And I just did it. And my mom fucking came to like support and shit. I was like, cool. And then we went to the Nash. I won the one there. And it's more so like, I mean, there's a panel of judges, you know?
Yeah.
I remember there's this guy named Youngstar, and he's got some credits like across the board. And he was just like, and again, I didn't know how good I was because I had never been in that kind of a place where I'm like vulnerable and open to judgment to like people that have trustworthy opinions. So yeah, I just went up there and played, and I was making some pretty weird shit. This was like post-trap beat shit when I was making kind of like what I thought was my own shit. And yeah, they were like, dude, I mean, you're fucking sick. Like, let me get your number. And I was like, fuck, wow.
That's cool. I mean, do you think, it sounds like in that, let's say, oblivious state that you were in, where you were kind of just making shit without thinking about it too much, it seems like that was an asset, right? Because if you had been, listening to what all of the other people were doing, that probably would have affected your sound, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, I was so lucky to get into it so young. I mean, I had no bills, no responsibilities. I could just make beats all day.
Is that what you were doing for fun?
Yeah, I was just making beats all fucking day, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I went through like some rough shit. I kind of like got into drugs when I was younger. I mean, but I went to rehab, and then when I got out of there, it was just sober, just beats, like all day, every day.
And did the beat making start before the drugs and the rehab?
Yeah, 12.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, yeah. So,
and then when, if you don't mind talking about it,
no, not at all.
When was the rehab period in your life?
So it was mainly like high school. I mean, I had an older brother who was just a fucking goon.
Yeah,
Like I always saw him with his friends, like smoking blunts and shit. Like I grew up around that, and
Sure.
I thought that shit was cool.
Looked up to that, yeah.
And I mean, it was in some regards, you
Sure,
know.
yeah.
So I got started very young, like middle school, fucking smoking weed, and just like blah blah blah. I got into high school, I was like fucking Xanax, like hydrocodone, just like the shit kids do for fun, whatever, drinking.
It was just all flying around.
Yeah, and I just, I don't know. It was just a chain of bad events, like toxic, very toxic girlfriend. And, I was just in a bad fucking place. I was just super depressed. I was just kind of, it sounds really dark, but I mean, I was just useless at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like, I couldn't hone in on anything because I was so distracted by all this minuscule shit.
Sure, just kind of lost.
Yeah, and, my parents were super, super supportive in all of this.
Did they see it happening?
Oh, yeah. I mean, dude, I've got, like, just super loving, amazing parents, and they were, like always trying to get me to, like, throwing me in therapist office and counseling offices, and I fucking hated most of them,
Yeah. Was it, okay, so here's a question, because I haven't gone through that kind of experience in my own life, and what you always hear is that, you can't help someone until they want to be helped, right?
So, yes.
And I've always wondered about that.
You need to find someone that can convince yourself that you want help, you know? Because when you're in front of like a man in a suit that's getting paid, a fucking $1 trillion a year, and you're just like, what's going on? Like, I don't want to talk to you, you know?
Right.
Like,
there's no connection,
that's
no
not the place for someone like a kid like me. And a lot of people could benefit from that. So I just put out a project called Irene.
Right.
And it was about Irene. Irene was my counselor that I met.
I was reading about that.
Yeah. So I met her. I had gone through a lot of therapists, and then I went to this IOP. I think that's intensive outpatient care or something.
Sure.
It's rehab, but not inpatient. So you're not living there.
Right.
So they're constantly drug testing you, and you have like a support group of kids going through the same shit you meet with, whatever.
And at the time, like when you showed up there, were you resentful or did you want to get out of it at that point? Or somewhere in between.
I was I was definitely resentful at first, you know. I mean, I was just like, fuck everything. Fuck my mom. Fuck my dad. Fuck all it. You know what I'm saying? I was just like
just
broken
off the deep
in the
end,
head.
yeah.
So Irene, I mean, yeah, dude, she's just so fucking cool. Like, so we had the group care thing, and then we had like one-on-one with Irene and like family counseling too. Like me and my mom and my dad talking to Irene. And she was just so fucking like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I mean, she's just a badass. Like, you walk in, she's just like, the fuck's up, dude? Like, she's cussing. She's just making you feel extremely comfortable.
Yeah.
Like, it really just feels like a homie. And I believe, I could be wrong, I don't know. I feel like, I believe she went through some drug stuff in her life, too.
Yeah.
And, like, that's what led her to...
Oftentimes, that makes the best counselors. Like, I know other people with that story.
Big time, yeah. So... yeah, I met her, and again, I may have not wanted to really get help because I didn't know why I would want to get help, but she was just she could talk to me in a way that would get through. I'm actually hearing what she's saying, you know, because she knows how to fucking communicate with kids like that.
Right.
So, again, the project wasn't so much like kissing Irene's ass or anything. I mean, I love Irene, she's sick. It's more so just like the power and crossing paths with that one person that can really, like, it's just crazy to think, like, just the more shit that happened, the more, like, successful shit that happened, like, in my career, I was like, damn, like, none of this would happen if I didn't just simply meet this one person who set all these things in motion. She didn't even mean to. She was just doing her thing, like helping people, and it just fucking did this, you know?
It is kind of incredible to think about those sort of random encounters that we have in our lives with people that, you know, we have no context for, total strangers at the start that affect you so strongly that way.
Dude, and that's something, that I take very seriously now. Like, after I've thought of all of this, you know, like, I just try to spread positivity not on some corny shit, just like if there's someone that wants help or wants advice or wants to just talk or anything, I mean, like, if you're just super open, if you just travel through life in that way, you have no idea what kind of like seed you're planting in people, you know? Like, you can set a whole fucking thing, and like, Irene's just doing her thing, she's doing what she wants to do, like drug counseling, and she fucking... you know?
And it's her job too. Like, that's the other part of it for me is I think, you know, I feel the same way. I like talking to people. I like being open in that way. But then I personally, like, I'm an introverted, shy person, you know? So for me, it's more just about like, you know, treating other people the way you want to be treated, all that old bullshit, but then more so than sort of saying, you know, well, I'm an inspirational figure, you know, I'm out here helping people. I don't buy into any of that, but for me, it's just like, well, if I can be out here, you know, living the way I would like to see other people live, and if anybody takes anything from that, then I'm just happy about that, you know?
Dude, big time. I mean, it's the golden rule, you know?
Yeah.
Like, treat others the way you want to be treated, and that's like a very universal, like, at the core concept of like,
I mean,
I agree. Yeah,
even like, not to get too fucking weird about it, but even like, you know, lots of religions are based around that core idea. Yeah. And I would argue that most of them have gotten away from it in some way or another.
Big time, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, you know, especially Christianity, because my parents were Christian. My sister became very hardcore Christian.
Okay.
And I was always, again, I was very like, fuck everything. You know, they would try to get me to church, go to church. I was like, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
Like, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, as I grew older, I was like, man, I mean, organized religion has gotten very, like you said, far away from the core concept. But the core concept is just like making the world a better place. You know what I'm saying? And it's a very pure, good thing. And it's, you know... I feel like I live like a Christian, but I'm not a Christian.
Right.
You know
like,
what I'm saying?
Yeah, like the ideal of a Christian.
Right,
you know?
yeah. And it's something, maybe I will be a Christian someday. I don't know. I'm still figuring that out.
Man.
But
I don't know. Yeah, do you believe in God? That's my thing. I just don't, and I can't for me, that cancels out
Man,
most
that
of my
is-
religious inclination.
There's so many associations just with the word God
Right, yeah.
that it's so hard to just say yes or no without
Yeah.
really diving into what God could be.
It's true. I'm just a fucking skeptic in general, man.
Right. I mean,
I
I
tend
think
to doubt.
This is the way I put it. This is something I've always said, and Joe Rogan put it perfectly the other day. I was watching this thing on Comedy Central. He had like some new little skit on
Okay.
stand-up thing on Comedy Central, and it was funny. He was talking about weed, and he was like, motherfuckers need to smoke weed like here and there. Like, they're like, oh, but you get paranoid. He's like, that's the best part, because like you need to get paranoid now and then, because he said, what did he say? He was like, we're on a fucking spinning ball flying through infinity, 500,000, and nobody talks about it. And I was like, dude, exactly. I mean, we have no idea what the fuck's going on. And just on that premise alone, I feel like there's lots of open space to believe that there could be like some sort of creational power
Sure.
of some sort. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, who knows,
I don't
man?
know.
I'm
That's the biggest part with it. Who knows?
Right.
Nobody.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like,
that's
what makes
generally-
it hard to grasp onto a god. Like,
Right.
For me.
Yeah, it's a bizarre thing. I don't know. So I mean, well, and it's interesting. Maybe this is a good way to get back on to what you were up to, because I think getting sober and that process, oftentimes there's like a religious overtone to it.
Mm-hmm.
With like the 12-step program and AA and all of that. I've always found it interesting that there are these religious overtones. Was any of that part of...
That was not a part of it,
That's
no.
good.
That's more for AA.
Yeah.
But I do believe, I've come to understand a little bit of why that is, because when you're so fucked and you need divine intervention, like you need a higher reason to live, because this surface level shit is not working for you, and there's
Right.
really nothing. I mean, a lot of people don't have anything they can grasp onto to be like, okay, it's worth living. Like, a lot of people have no family. They're just destroyed by alcohol, and they literally need like a higher sense of purpose to even. So that's why that actually is professionally. It's like a professional medical
Sure.
reasoning that is in there.
Sure.
You know?
And then I think that leads to sort of being of service to other people, which is, I think, a really helpful. Like, I have a friend who just recently got sober after like a really long, dark period. And yeah, for him, it's all about, and he's an artist as well. And he kind of had to take a step back from the art and be like, well, really what I have to focus on right now is just being of service to other people and not focusing so much on myself. And again, I think that goes back to religious ideals. It's weird we keep coming back
man,
to that.
it's
but I don't know.
no, it's a lot of things revolve around like almost every interaction and everything you do revolves around some form of spirituality. Whether it's like organized religion or not. So it
Right.
makes sense, but
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, and it's really easy to get lost in the world that we're in, like lost in just ego. And I mean, when you're standing on a stage and there's like 10,000 people worshiping you, like that's not my case, but that's a lot
Right.
of people's cases.
Yeah.
Like, it's very fucking easy to accidentally just travel down a mental, spiritual path that you didn't really intend to go down. Of
100%.
like, wow, these bitches want to fuck me. These guys want to give me blow all the time. These
Right.
like, everyone wants to hang out with me and say hi. It's
Yeah.
like, when you're that guy, yeah, I feel like it's very easy to just, but a lot of people don't. I love when people don't.
Well,
you know?
and what I've seen, I will say, in my time in this game, and this is like, I feel like I see this like once a year, is like somebody young will start popping, sort of catch a spark, blow up really fast, and they'll kind of turn into an asshole for like 6 to 12 months. And then a lot of the times it equalizes after that.
Dude, so yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you sort of you live that rock star life for a second, then you realize like it actually kind of sucks.
I feel like I went through that on
Really?
a very minor level, because
Yeah.
I was like, sober for the most part, and I was, but I mean, I just remember it was very exhilarating to have people give a shit about you on like a mass scale.
Of course.
But yeah, I mean,
Well-
and a lot of people don't even make it through that. So and it prevents them from going where they could have gone.
Yes.
And then a lot of people do, and then they excel, you know?
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's bizarre, man. I mean, do you find it, all the trappings of this lifestyle, what some people would say the perks, like, people trying to offer you free stuff all the time, people wanting to party with you, people maybe treating you different than they would treat you otherwise. I go back and forth about it because on one hand, it's nice to feel pampered and, taken care of and all that. But then after a while, for me, I was actually talking to Getter about this. It starts to feel like you just start doing it without thinking about it. So you're like, oh, sure, I'll take a shot with this guy because he's nice and he wants to give me the shot. But then after you do that for a few months or whatever, it's like, well, actually, I don't like doing this, So why am I here?
Dude, this is a big thing. I mean, I actually, I don't like that. Like, I don't like... And I'm not saying this to just oversell myself as this good guy.
No.
I've really grown to not like special attention. I like conversations like what we're having right now, where we're both just Homo sapiens on fucking planet Earth
right.
speaking to each other,
keeping it simple.
And there's no presence of any, like unhealthy influence as to why we're talking about what we're talking about or anything. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, even playing shows, I have like this funny, like, I'm not a huge fan of playing. I like playing headline shows where it's my fans. I get to do what I want. When I'm playing festivals and I have to kind of conform and shit.
Yeah.
And it's really just about having a huge crowd and the best slot and the best family photo and shit.
Keeping everybody at the stage. Yeah.
And, you kind of have to do it to, like, play the part of, the industry you're in. But a lot of the times it's like...
How do you change what you do in that? Like, because we all change what we do depending on the setting, at least a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So for you, what form does that come in? Is it just like different track selection?
Different track selection, and it's not that hard because my discography over the past few years is so all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, I used to do a lot of hard trap shit. And I've very strayed away from that, but it's still in my discography, so I can whip those out, and I'm playing original shit.
Yeah.
And it's going over well, because
Sure.
it's at a fucking EDM festival.
Yeah, and people get psyched. They're like, oh, he's playing that.
And like people that are fans of that, like, yeah. So, I'd say it's less, it's honestly not, I've gotten to the point where my sets at festivals are not that different. They just don't go over as well.
Sure.
And I'm okay with that.
So you've gotten more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I've gotten more comfortable because it's like, I've never been one to like, and this is nothing to anyone that does this, it's just not my style and never was. Like, I've never been like a very good DJ and a very good EDM DJ. Like, I'm not comfortable like yelling on the mic. I'm not comfortable jumping around. Like, I just got to a point where I was like, look, I mean... And another thing, like I'll play festivals, and a lot of time, for a period when I was figuring it out, I was conforming a lot and playing sets that arguably are not very Medasin at all.
Right.
And like you get a lot of fucking feedback on that. Like, where the fuck was blah, blah? And it's like hard to convey to the very few fans you have in the crowd. Like, look, dude, like I get what you're saying and I understand, but I don't want to play this awkward ass fucking thing where it's like, I'm up there like, I'm all about the art, bro. Like, fuck if y'all... I want people to have fun.
Right.
But, I mean, I feel like I've kind of balanced out in the middle where I feel like enough people can have fun to where it's not a piece of shit set and it's definitely a Medasin set.
Yeah, man,
so.
I think as long as you're proud of it at the end of the day, that's the most important part.
Right.
Like, as long as you felt like you said whatever you wanted to say,
Right.
then I don't think the rest of it really matters.
Yeah.
Because we all come from a different perspective, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, it took me a long time to get comfortable on the mic and, like, jumping around. But naturally, when I play shows, like, I'm kind of a spaz. Like, I start jumping around just because that's, like, what happens to my body.
Yeah.
You know, and so for me, like, it just always felt natural to do that. But then I would find myself going too far the other direction where I was just, like, you know, I was playing, like, so many banger after banger kind of sets that like it felt natural in the moment, but then I would look back and be like, well, I kind of wished there was more depth to
exactly.
that.
Like
know?
A lot of people can do that. You know?
Right.
And it's nothing, I mean, yeah, and I want to make it very clear that I'm not on some like like, yeah, I'm just not that EDM, bro. Fuck screaming into the mic. That's just not what I got. I got into like music.
Right.
I didn't even, like most people, like I'd say Getter is a good example. Like Getter was into EDM and he was into DJing. That's what he was passionate about. And then he started pursuing that. And
so wait,
that,
what were your
music.
references? Like, so like post rehab, when you're kind of like really going crazy on the beats, uploading to SoundCloud.
I wasn't yet.
Oh, okay. So when did that happen?
So we can go back to there for a second. So I remember I won. This was all happening while I was in rehab. I did and I was getting my head clear, and I was like, I'm pursuing music. Fuck this shit. So I was making beats all day, every day. I did the Dallas beat thing.
Right.
I won that and got accepted to go to the New York National one, which again, it's not. It's not so much like that was what changed everything, but the people I met there. I'll get there. So,
well, I mean, did it kind of just open your eyes to the larger world,
honestly,
the larger industry?
No.
Okay.
Like I'll get there. It's interesting. I remember I was really nervous to go to the New York one. I've never traveled. I was fucking terrified. I had anxiety. I was dealing with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in Irene's office, and I was like, dude, I'm fucking terrified. Like I don't know if I can do it. And she. Like whatever, encourage me, whatever, blah blah. I go to the New York one. I did not win that one, which I didn't care. I mean, I was playing some weird, wacky shit. It was kind of like I won. You know what I'm saying? I won in terms of like, who the fuck was that guy?
Yeah.
But in terms of just structured, proper bangers and beats and shit, like
you
other
weren't
guys
playing
were
the game, but
I was really.
you left your mark.
I've always been very passionate about leaving my mark. Sure, and one of the guys there was Illmind. I don't know if you're familiar with Illmind.
Yeah, I not personally, but I mean his sample packs are fire.
His sample packs, yeah, and he's got credits all over the board,
No, yeah, he does.
like big time, and he's actually killing it right now. Shout out Illmind, and he was there. So it was kind of like a camp at the New York thing. It was surrounding the competition. There was like this camp of like big producers like teaching us shit and just talking, meeting, and. So I did my beats and shit, and Illmind reached out to me afterwards and didn't reach out to really anyone else. It was like, yeah, those guys make hard-ass beats, that's cool. But this guy was like really on some shit, and he pulled me aside and he was like, yo, I'm doing this. I didn't even upload to SoundCloud yet. He was like, yo, I have this little SoundCloud page called Roseville Music something. And so I started putting out shit with his little SoundCloud collective, and they were getting like 4,000 plays, 6,000 plays. I was like, holy fuck! And then I kind of continued doing that, and then I put out my own one song, not on Roseville, for the first time. It got like 10,000 plays on SoundCloud, and I don't know. It was just like, holy fuck, like 10,000 plays. That's a lot when you're not getting anything. So I was super excited, and that was it. So essentially, the reason I say it's just interesting to me is because I did all of this huge ordeal, but really all that mattered was that I just met Illmind and he set me on the path. Like another version of Irene.
Right.
Like those things are very important.
Yeah.
And
neither one of those was expected or planned.
No, they were just like, like it's kind of like if you're just on a fucking wave. Like it sounds so corny, but if you're just living in such a way, then you're kind of just on this path of where shit like that happens to you.
Right.
And I think that way is more so like just really being yourself. Like I was being myself musically, and people appreciated that. Like Illmind appreciated that. The other guys were fucking amazing, and they're probably doing big shit now. Like, but they were just making, a current good beat.
Right.
And
that's the thing. It's like, where do you want to end up in the game, right? Because if you're not careful, it's what we were just talking about. You can end up in a different category than where you thought you belonged, you know?
Yep.
And then once people have those perceptions, it can be way harder to break out of it.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I mean, I had more so around that time, I was looking up to like Flying Lotus and like Clams Casino and just like the really experimental like beat makers more so than like the industry, like hip hop beat makers and shit.
Well, and I think you were not alone in that, right? I think right around that time there was this burgeoning movement, mostly on SoundCloud, of all these, I don't even know what to call it, but just an alternative to the big industry at the time. That existed, mostly online for years, right? Until people started figuring out how to go and take that into the real world. That's actually another question I wanted to ask you, because it's something I've been thinking about a lot, is that, you built this huge following online and you had this online movement that was going crazy. How do you take IRL to URL, right? Or URL to IRL, you know what I mean? Like, how do you translate X number of followers, X number of plays into actual people coming to your shows? Has it been like a gradual thing, or was there more?
That's hard. I don't know. I think another thing, like, my personality type is like, I need to feel like I'm doing shit differently than everyone else. Like, it's kind of cringy at times. I'm like a super hyper hipster. You know what I mean? Like, whatever everyone is doing, I just don't do it just because everyone else is doing it.
Right.
And
even if it's a good idea.
And I feel like that kind of translates. Like, if you're just tweeting actual thoughts and you're not tweeting, so much like a very well thought out piece of content, like, what's up, I'm coming to blah blah blah, buy tickets here. If it's more just like, what's up, fuckers, I'm like fucking a picture of like your fucking ball sack or something. I don't know, I'm just fucking around, but you know what I mean? Like,
I know
just
exactly
being a very personable person online, like, I think people connect with that over time, big time, and that, I think that helped translate to IRL a lot.
Sure, yeah, so people felt like they actually knew you as a person.
Yeah, and you see that happen with artists all the time that are like that, I think, like, I don't know if you know Billie Eilish.
Yeah.
Like, Billie Eilish is super, like, like Odd Future. That was like the epitome of what their movement was, and then Brockhampton.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I've been thinking about Odd Future a lot lately, and how it's only now I'm starting to realize how far ahead of their time they were when they came out.
Right.
It's fucking crazy.
I think I think what I'm talking about was the core of what made them is like, they were totally anti everything. They were just like, yo, like, just...
No, you're totally right. They were doing everything differently.
Their production, their writing, their content, their fucking little goofy skits. Like, they were just doing
even
exactly
the way
what
they dressed,
they felt. Like, the way they dressed. In a lot of ways, they were ahead of their time.
Yeah,
like,
it's
they were living in 2018 and 2010. Man. But,
and to be fair, they did very well at the time. So it's not like certain artists, you say they're ahead of their time because they never got appreciated. But they did get appreciated. I guess I'm just coming back to it with a newfound appreciation now.
Right. It's just, I love seeing when someone or a group like Odd Future just perfectly... That's all that's really going on, is everyone is trying to fill voids. And there's infinity voids to be filled, and you don't know what they are. And it's cool when someone just accidentally perfectly plugs into the shit, and they blow the fuck up because of it, and they didn't mean to do it.
Right.
It wasn't this like tactical plan.
They weren't trying to lead a new scene.
It was just, everything was so, it just makes it feel very natural and just, like, just meant to be, I guess. I don't know.
At this point in 2018 in your career, do you feel like you're a part of a scene or a movement? Or do you sort of feel like at this point you've kind of established your own thing and it's just...
I feel like I've established my own thing, not so much in like a huge way, but I'm very... this is something that I've, over the past year to 2 years, like, had to figure out a lot. Is like, what am I doing in the sense of like I've got my managers calling me. I love my management. I love my agent. They're all calling me. Good guys. Very happy with them. But again, and it's not like they're doing anything wrong in what I'm about to say, but it's more so like, they'll call me and they're like, hey, how do you put it? I just started to catch on to like, I'm playing this game, I have this opportunity, and like these things are becoming successful. So it's like, where do you go in terms of everyone is just looking up, like as like you get more, ideally you get more fans, you're making more money, you're playing bigger shows, and that's like the format that most people go by.
Right.
So it's very hard. and I always felt kind of confused as to like, I don't really want, that's cool. That to me should be like a side effect of doing what I want to do. So I kind of went through a phase where I had to make it very clear, like, yo, like, I'm not doing a lot of these things, you know? Like,
yeah. You don't want to play the same game.
I was getting burnt out, like playing the game and not fulfilling what I wanted to be doing, you know?
Yeah.
And again, back to like the Getters and shit. That is what they want to be doing. Like, and not so much Getter anymore, you know.
Right.
He's on some new shit, but
doing
you know, purely
in
in the beginning, like that's where he was headed.
But this is a classic thing, I think, is that, you know, managers and agents if they do their job is to make it as big as possible.
So they're doing what they should be doing, yeah.
But then as the artist, you do have to push back sometimes and steer the ship.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say it felt like I was pushing back. It was more like it's on me to communicate what the plan is.
That's the thing. If you just sat back and didn't say a word, you just go on their ride, which might work out, but it might not be what you wanted. You know?
Exactly. And yeah, so you know, I just kind of come to terms with like, it's a very weird, confusing thing to come to terms with like I'm cool where I'm at right now. Like I'm making enough money to live in a nice spot and pay my bills and then some. And that's all I could ever really ask for. And I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing, at least right now. You know, it's subject to change. Maybe I'll get lost in the sauce. Maybe I won't. I don't know.
But no, it seems, I mean, you put out the album, which is a fantastic album, and you're going on tour, and probably your biggest headline tour to date,
yeah, so
right?
far. Yeah, I've only done 2. This is my second one. So, yeah, and again, a lot of this is around the album, too, because man, it was fucking weird. Like making an album, being the person that I am, like just so hyper hipster, like, and so over judgmental of my own shit.
Right.
And like having this conception of what this debut album has to be. It has to be these perfectly done songs with great features from the label and like, and I was getting a lot of top lines from the label and shit from my A&R, and I'm just like, dude, I'm just not feeling this shit. I don't like. If I'm putting out a debut project, it has to be like exactly like me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and I understood like a lot of people would not understand it, and a lot of people they wouldn't you know what I mean? I feel like I felt that way, and then when I put it out, people appreciated it a lot more than I thought they would because of that reason. Because like, damn, I mean, there's like 2 features on here.
Right.
There's only 2 features, neither of which were big people at all. They were just my homies. The rest was just instrumental shit. And I mean...
Yeah, no, I mean, I think probably the people who had already been following you were like, oh, okay, you know, it's something they could relate to. It wasn't like all of a sudden you were just making pop songs.
Yeah, big time. And then you also have all the new fans you're constantly getting at festivals that are a lot more like, you know, need things to be a lot more digestible to listen to because they might not be like super into music like that. And so you're kind of disappointing or confusing them.
Right.
And then you're pleasing your old fans, or you're upsetting your old fans and you're pleasing. It's like...
Yeah, it's a constant.
So I just felt like I detached from that game at all. And I was like, you know, pretended that I wasn't even Medasin, this thing. And I just locked in this fucking room. And, you know, and this is all while I'm trying to figure this shit out. Like, I could have made it more palatable, and I could have made a lot of the songs to where they would do better on Spotify, or they'd sit better with the label, and more opportunities would come, but they're not opportunities that I would want. You know what I mean?
Did you have anyone trying to push you in that direction? More of like a streaming direction, so to speak?
No.
That's good.
I mean, yes, like, you know, like with suggestions, but I wouldn't say pushing.
Right.
Like, I'm very adamant. Like, if, you know, the label sends a top line, hey, I think you could do something cool with this, and I hate it, I'm like, yo, this fucking blows. I don't ever send me this again. I'm not that mean about it, but, you know, like, I make it very clear, like, you know, I don't know. It's just interesting.
Well, and sonically, I do think the album holds together really well. I was taking another listen yesterday, and the sonic palette of it, I think it's very cohesive. Like there's, a lot of similar textures, not even similar, but, I think all the textures you use, the sound selection, it all comes together to create a pretty full package, which I think helps sort of sell it, quote unquote, as a full album to the listener.
Right.
Because, you always see, like, when a producer puts out an album, especially if it's more features and that sort of thing, it almost feels like each song is its own thing, and sometimes it's hard to tell how it's connected.
Yeah.
But I think for you, I think you made the smarter decision there. Because I don't know, I think long term that pays off way more to kind of just like make a singular statement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just, again, I wouldn't even necessarily use the word smarter. I think it's just everyone's doing what they want to be doing.
Sure.
If someone's doing something, then hopefully that's what they want to be doing.
Right.
You know? Like I look at, I'm sure you've seen like the Steve Aoki documentary, like I'll Stop When I'm Dead.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
called. And I remember watching that and I was like, damn, like, there's no fucking way I could do what Steve Aoki does.
He's
you know?
crazy.
He's
yeah,
more
man.
like into business. He's more into just working very hard and like
His work ethic is insane.
yeah, and that's what he's into. That's what fulfills him,
Yep.
and that's amazing. And like some people that doesn't fulfill them. Like that's why you have a lot of these smaller niche artists like Flying Lotus. Flying Lotus has been around maybe as long as Steve Aoki, but far less people know who he is.
Right.
And he's okay with that. It's just
Right.
weird to come to terms with being okay because you're so used to the way everyone talks about shit and suggests shit. You're like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be getting constantly bigger, you know?
Right.
And it's just not always the case.
Well, and some people are just naturally more competitive,
Right.
And some people, they just have to win the game. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like, I know a few people. I think Aoki is very much like that. I think some of the other really, really big dudes all kind of have that similar mindset. Are you a competitive person?
Dude, I was just thinking about, I am. Not in that sense, though. I'm competitive in terms of, I'd say, like, good ideas. Like, I'm not going to lie. I think about it sometimes. Like, when I'm working on shit or if I'm about to put something down, I'm like, I hope some of my peers peep this and they're like, damn, he's got some good-ass ideas.
Yeah,
Not, in the same regard that I respect someone that works really hard,
No, yeah.
So I'm like, I want you to feel like I have better ideas than you.
Sure.
That's where I'm competitive,
Yeah. That for me, it's really. I've been thinking about this a lot, just personally lately too. Is like, I'm not super competitive, but what I do really care about is getting recognition from my peers. That to me, I think is, and I don't even know if that's a good quality in myself, but I think that is something that drives a lot of what I do.
Same.
Is just, I want the people that I think are good to think that I'm good.
Exactly. And I love that, man. I thrive off of that. I'll never forget. This was like one of the peak moments of my fucking life ever. Deadmau5, I super look up to Deadmau5 a lot because of exactly what we're talking about. He's always done exactly what he wants to do, and he's very outspoken, like, and kind of a dickhead about, like, fuck all this, blah, blah. He's like my spirit animal. I don't necessarily act on those thoughts as much as he does.
Dude,
like,
I want to get him on this show so bad.
Man, that'd be sick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember I met him at Lights All Night in Dallas. He was playing and Weathen was playing, and Weathen was one of my friends, so I wasn't playing, I just came to hang out. And I saw Deadmau5, and I remember I saw someone tweet that he had it was like a screenshot of him live streaming, and he had some of my sample packs from Splice.
Oh,
and
dope.
he didn't have a lot of shit. It was kind of like, wow, that's sick.
Yeah.
So then I mustered up the courage to go say hi to him. I remember he had like fucking security with him. I went to like tap him on the shoulder. Security like yanked me off. I was like, whoa. And then he looked over at me and he was like, oh, dude, Medasin. And I was like, yeah.
That's an amazing moment.
So that was like amazing. And then he was doing a live stream where he was taking donations for charity, and if you donate like $20 or more and send a link, he plays your song and like critiques it on the stream, whatever. And I knew, and it was like a lot of like, very small kids just like fucking blah, blah, and it was cool. And I kind of popped in there and I was like, dude, I know he remembers me. I'm going to like kind of semi-troll and like make a donation and slip a link. It was like a song I was putting out the next day. It was a remix of Joji. I don't know if you've heard, Joji.
Yeah.
So I did that. And I waited for like 2 fucking hours for him to get to the leak. And I was like so ready on the screen record just to see what happened. And then he got to it, and he was like, oh, fuck, Medasin. And he was just like, dude, it's fucking amazing, blah, blah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, just...
That's dope,
I
man.
love that. I thrive on just like impressing the very few people that I look up to.
Right.
And that was another weird thing with the album, because I have a lot of friends, like Getter, comes from not so much anymore, but like arguably like the dubstep realm.
Yes.
Rez tweets me a lot, and she's a fan. She comes from like the down tempo, like whatever. You know? And I'm not at all a part of those scenes, so it's like to have those eyes on you, and they're fans because they just like what you do when you're being you.
Right.
So I knew if I were to put out an album that was just too albumy of an album, then it'd be like, yeah, fuck, I wish he didn't do that.
Right.
And I could feel that. But then all road signs point to doing that,
Right.
So like to not, and they all fucked with it, and they all like, showed support like out loud on Twitter and shit. And yeah, I mean, I love that.
Yeah, that's a good
an amazing
feeling.
dude.
Were you able to like build any kind of relationship with Deadmau5? You talked to him?
Yeah, we played PUBG a couple times because I played with Getter, and they all play PUBG, and he was just like, yeah, come play with me and Joel. And then again, I hopped in there. He's like, yeah, Medasin just joined. He was like, oh, fuck, Medasin. I was like, nah. But yeah.
That's the way to do it, man. That sounds fun.
Yeah, and that's another big thing. It's like not being fucking annoying.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Dude,
like,
that's the key.
It's the key to everything.
Everything.
Like,
be nice and don't be annoying.
and it's hard if you're like super excited and you're coming up and you want to like so bad, your mind is wandering off. You're like, dude, what if I collabed with Deadmau5? Like, I want to have it. It's like, dude, like, it just doesn't work like that, you know? Like,
no, yeah.
And once you figure out it doesn't, it's just so much easier to just relax, and these people will appreciate you because you're just a fucking guy who's a dude.
Yeah.
You know, you're not like the SoundCloud kid that's trying to get a collab so bad.
100%, dude. I have a funny story about that I don't think I've ever told on this show, which is like a while back I did a little work on the second Major Lazer album, and that was kind of when I first... I had met Diplo before, but that was when like we kind of got to know each other a little bit.
Right.
And so I did that, and then I don't know, a few months later, Major Lazer was going on this like mini tour for like 6 dates, and I was young, like, and my career was young. I didn't really have much going on yet, and I hit up Wes. I hit up Diplo, and I was like, hey, you know, I was just an idiot. I was like, I saw you're going on tour. Can I open? And he's a cool dude. And he was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, you know, that blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to open for Major Lazer. But I didn't have a booking agent. I didn't know how any of that booking, routing, none of it worked. And so I became that annoying kid where, like, you know, I didn't hear anything about it for a while. So then I hit him up again. I was like, hey, just wanted to see what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And I just did it too much. And then finally he was just like, yo, you need to fall back, man.
Right. Dude, everybody has been there. Everyone's been there. And it's really just an education and experience thing. Once you get the agent, once you get the management, you understand how everything works, then you know not to, you know what to do and not to do. You know what I mean?
Right. And then once he said that, I mean, obviously I felt bad at the time, but it was a great educational moment.
Big time, yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I fell back and I was like, now I know how to act in these kind of situations.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
And then our relationship got much better.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't being annoying anymore.
Yeah. It's just funny. I mean, like I would make much more relationship progress, and this is just an example, with Deadmau5 by fucking sniping him in PUBG over and over than I would, like, you know, just playing PUBG and asking, like, dude, so what's your, like, creative process? Like, how do you... It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean?
Man.
Like,
and the other thing, okay, here's another thing, is that, because I see people run into this every once in a while, too, like, sometimes there's just not a reason for you to interact with somebody else.
Okay.
Like,
yeah,
sometimes
go
it just doesn't make sense. There's no reason to be like, hey, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm such and such.
Yeah.
Like, if sometimes if you would just not say anything and let the moment pass, whoever that person is, whatever that situation is, it'll happen again at the right time,
Dude.
and it'll be so much better.
Huge piece of knowledge right there. Because, I mean, especially if you're at the big festivals, you're around, there's fucking DJ Khaled, there's Lil Wayne, there's you could easily go say hi to them. But it's like, why? They don't fucking give a flying fuck who you are.
Yeah.
You're just a nuisance in that
Yeah,
scenario.
you have no
And it'd be so
relationship.
much fucking cooler if someday they hear about your music and they're like, hey, I think I played a couple festivals with him, and he totally, may have walked by him, and he's in his own world doing his own thing, and people come in the shit out of that,
Yeah.
Like that's huge. I mean, I've been there all the time. I never fucking say hi to people, and
I don't either.
Sometimes Benito will be like, dude, you should fucking try to get a picture. Blah, blah. I'm just like, dude, no.
Yeah.
No. Well, it's just no.
Are you to the point where you have people doing that to you?
Like other artists?
Yeah, other artists are just,
I feel
aspiring
like
people at shows.
I'm
or-
definitely still small enough to where I can manage it, and I
Yeah.
love interacting with people.
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
love if someone comes up, dude, you inspired my blah, blah. I love that.
Right.
It's by no means too much to keep up with or annoying right now. I know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, of course, yeah. There's a lot.
I mean, there's always some random weirdo.
I'm trying not to be rude here and use the word annoying.
Yeah.
But like I said earlier, just people that are not as far along with their knowledge of how everything works. So they don't know the do's and don'ts, and it's like, as long as you know that that's what the case is, then you can just be like, all right, he just doesn't really understand. I can just talk to him. real
Right,
quick. It's not a
exactly.
huge
Yeah, that's
deal.
something you hear a lot is that, sometimes people just come up to you at any level of the game and they're not even seeing you as a person. They're just so flustered or in their own
Right.
head or whatever.
Right.
Sometimes you just have to be like, man, we're just two people talking.
Yeah.
Let's just be cool.
Exactly, man. I mean, I don't know, but I'm pretty confident. If you were Dead Mouse and we were doing this podcast, then hopefully I could be as relaxed as I am right now. You know what I mean? And it takes a lot of time to be experienced enough to get there to where you can be relaxed around Dead Mouse.
Right.
But once you're there, I mean, it's a very good place to be. It's a very beneficial place to be.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, no, it's the best mindset. I want to talk more about what you're up to right now. We mentioned the tour that you have coming up. What are you doing differently this time around? Now that you put out the album, this is in theory, the start of, your first official post-album tour. It feels more legit, right?
Right.
How are you approaching it differently, or are you approaching it differently?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was another thing that was interesting about the album is I didn't have the mental capacity, and I knew it would be crippling to think so hard about the tour before the album came out.
Right.
Or I didn't think about anything. I just thought, this is the music that I really loved making, and I'm putting it out. And I'm just going to try my best to hold on to whatever happens after it. So that's essentially what the tour is. I think my biggest problem I've always had is I'm definitely a part of the EDM scene, questionably on accident. I didn't even mean to
Right.
be here, but I am. And I feel like it's kind of my job to make my shit work, because a lot of shit just doesn't fucking work, dude.
What do you mean?
Work in terms of we'll say Rez, right? Rez blew the fuck up because she just found something that not a lot of people were doing, and it did work.
Yep.
It was danceable, and it was productionable.
Yep.
It was everythingable, and it just worked.
Right.
And a lot of my ideas, I don't make them with the intention of having it go over well live. I
On
make
the
it
dance floor, right?
Exactly. I make it to be listened to in headphones when you're stoned or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? So just...
Yeah, how do you translate that? How do you take that into a live setting?
But I also feel like I'm getting to the point where I have enough hardcore fans to where, I can play a diarrhea sample for an hour and they'll fuck with it. You know what I'm saying?
that's album number 2.
Exactly. So that's a good place to be too. They're going to be appreciative of whatever I play. But making it, making the edits and just piecing together the set to where it's going to work like that, and playing it's ideally going to be all original with
Right.
the exception of a few of my fringe tracks. And, I hope they go over well. And if they don't go over that, they will go over well,
Yeah.
because I have the safety net of fandom. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Which is great. But, you know, if it's not the best, most insane dancey show ever, then I'm totally cool with that. And I mean,
Yeah, I think that's important, man. I think we all have to be comfortable having the ebb and flow to our set, right? Because we just went through this crazy EDM explosion the last couple of years, last 5 years, where it wasn't really acceptable or, you know, considered proper to have any lulls. You know, everything had to be high energy,
right?
Hands in the air the whole time. But, you know, if I think about my favorite shows I've ever been to, or like my favorite musical moments, even my favorite albums, they're all things that, you know, go from high to low, quiet to loud, you know, and have like...
that's something that I feel like I do fairly well, is I'm not afraid to, if I'm in Banger Central for fucking 10 minutes, I'm not afraid to just reverb out and reset.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, reverb out, like, how the fuck, like, maybe say some, maybe don't say anything.
Yeah.
It's just production goes black, reverb out, and just go into, like, essentially another intro.
Right.
Into, like, a new chapter of the set. You
Sometimes
know what I mean?
you got to reset the room, man. Sometimes
Dude,
that's the best
I find
way
myself, because, I mean, you can get carried away. Like, people they want to go hard, and you're fucking feeding them bangers, and you're like, you know what, I got to fucking, you know, do me a little more. And
Yeah.
that's something I do a ton. I might do that 4 times during the set, just reverb out. And typically I'll play one of my bigger, more chill songs in that moment to kind of like, so it's not as weird of like a
right. It
a
keeps
pause.
people on the path.
Yeah. It's funny. I have this joke, kind of, not really a joke, it's very serious, but have you heard my Portugal the Man remix?
I have.
So that's my biggest song. Like, it's on Spotify, on everything. So that's like that's kind of my gauge song for, like, if I'm playing a festival and I don't know how many people are really fans, I'll always just very hard, abrupt cut to that song, because it's very identifiable right away with the do. And it's like, it's either like, oh, and I'm like, thank God, or it's just crickets, and I'm like, fuck. Well, now that's, but you got to do that. I'll do that in the first 10 minutes of the set, just to get a feel for what I'm going to have to do.
That's the thing. Then you know what kind of a night you're going to have, right?
Yeah. But I mean, back to the headline show. All of my originals tied together in the best way I can figure out, and we have new production. You know, I mean, you know, lasers, fucking, just the whole LED, like, you know, whatever, at the big shows, not, because there's a lot of, like, shows where it doesn't, I mean, that shit's fucking expensive, man. I feel like people don't understand, like, I know you know, like,
it's pretty wild, man.
Man, yeah, when I would be losing a lot of fucking money if I brought that stage to every single show, because it's very expensive. But at the bigger markets like here, LA, San Francisco, New York, like, yeah, so those will be like the real shows, and then the rest will essentially be the same set, just not with my custom production. Right. So,
and I mean, those smaller shows, man, I sometimes think those can be more rewarding sometimes, both for the artist and for the fan.
Oh, yeah, man.
You know, I feel like you can connect a lot easier.
Yeah.
Like, maybe your show is more quote unquote impressive when you have all the LEDs and the lasers and all that. But I don't know, man, like, for me, again, it's just the shit that I remember going to. What sticks out in my mind, it was when I felt like we were all there together. I was connecting with whoever was on stage. Yep. Yeah, that to me is the most powerful shit.
Yeah, man. It's just a whole, they're really 2 different shows. They're 2 different things entirely.
100%.
Like, yeah, I've played a lot of those. I mean, I remember I played this one small show in, I think it was Brisbane. I played this really small, like, little mini tour run in Australia. One of the shows, was it Brisbane? Man, I don't remember. I don't remember, honestly. It was Sydney. It was Sydney.
What'd you do, World Bar?
No, fuck. What is it called? It's kind of like the brownies and lemonade of Sydney, but it's like...
Like Chinese laundry?
No.
Huh.
God, if I heard the name, I'd remember it. I feel bad I can't shout them out, but I just can't think of it right now. But they have...
It wasn't The Wall, was it?
Not The Wall.
Okay, yeah.
I don't remember. It was at like a very smaller bar venue, and I had a lot of fans there. And small stage. I mean, the stage is like this high off the ground, you know, like a foot off the ground. And I just like in fucking got on the mic like 5 minutes in. I was like, dude, just come up here. We just had like a dance party. Everyone's like looking at the CDJs, like singing, and it's just fun, you know?
Yeah,
and it's a whole new vibe than trying to like do a show, you know? It's
and those
like,
people will remember that shit.
Yeah,
you know
big
what I
time,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and where do you see yourself taking it from here? You know, like, do you think, are you an album guy? Like, have you enjoyed this process? Do you think another album
Dude,
is
I
down the
really
road?
did. I did.
Yeah.
I hated it and I loved it. So it was just very intense. And I feel like I made the most just mental, philosophical progress that I've ever made, like musically, just throughout the process of like, I mean, it's crazy, dude. Like, it's so easy to say, like, yeah, I'm working on a project, guys, like, put piecing it together. But then once it's a week out and the date's locked in,
right,
and then it's been out for a week, it's like a fucking roller coaster of just thoughts and like, what the fuck? This is so strange. Like,
yeah,
I'm definitely, I see, I don't know, because I kind of just go with the wind or whatever I'm feeling, but I feel like albums are something that I will really enjoy making a whole cohesive music experience, like going forward, and you can really only do that through the medium of an album.
Sure.
You know?
Do you have a sense, you know, on that same note of how your sound is evolving or where it might be heading, or is it more just kind of going with the flow?
Man.
Like, do you see yourself working with like more vocalists, that kind of thing? Do you see yourself kind of keeping it more internal? Obviously, we've talked about the importance of kind of just sticking to your guns, sticking to the vision.
You know, yeah, I don't know. You know, if Justin Bieber wants to get in the studio, like, fuck, dude, I'll get in the studio with Justin Bieber and I'll make a top 40 song if I, you know. But, you know, if it's not, which likely won't happen. So it's like...
And you're not asking the A&R to get you Justin Bieber.
Yeah, exactly. So if that just, you know, happens, like, yeah, I'll do some shit like that here and there. I think for the most part, I'm very fucking picky with vocalists and singers and writing. So I don't see myself doing a shit ton of collaboration. I think the first album also was very important for, like, during the process of making the album, there's a lot of, like, people that aren't that big and unrealistic that I really fucking love. And when you have your people reach out to them, all they really have to refer to is like, oh, let's check him out. And they see like these remixes, and they're like, oh, he's just an EDM guy, sort of, you know. I feel like my remixes aren't painfully like too far on the EDM side of the spectrum, but you know, they're like, oh, he's just another remix SoundCloud guy.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was a big step in having something for them to refer to, like, okay, this guy's doing his own shit, and I would like to connect with that. So hopefully I'll get to work with some of the people that I like, but, you know, if not, yeah, I see it being, you know, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where my sound's
Well, and we
I don't
started off this whole conversation by saying that, you know, probably the best way is to not overthink it, right?
Exactly,
and
yeah.
So I think that's a totally acceptable answer.
Yeah. I mean, that was something I learned. I learned a lot from, do you know Joba?
I know the name. I don't really know much.
So he's from Brockhampton.
Okay.
And he's a singer. I think he's one of really the only, if not the only singer in terms of like melodic singer, and doesn't rap too much. He'll rap here and there, but whatever. I met Joba. I have an original song with him before Brockhampton even blew up. I just found Joba. I was like, this is amazing. Like, damn, these guys are on some shit. And I mean, I can't stress it. I mean, they had like a mixtape out with like 80,000 plays on SoundCloud. They were like really nowhere near what they are today. And I just became good friends with Joba. I remember we made this song and we wanted artwork for it, like some cool art. So I told him, I was like, yo, if I buy you a ticket to Dallas tomorrow, like, will you come do a photo shoot? And he was like, yep. And I was like, wow, okay.
Nice.
So he just did it. And he was a very deep person. We talked a lot about just very existential shit. But just the principle of him, like, just coming to Dallas. And, like, I feel like I learned a lot from him. I remember after Brockhampton blew up, they did a Dallas show, and I went to hang out. We were hanging out at Whataburger. I'll never forget this, because I was kind of down at the time as far as feeling, like, held down by the confines of, like, my past discography or like limited to EDM. This was when I was trying to piece together songs and no one really would want to work because then I just felt, I was like, fuck, man. And yeah, he's like, he's just very encouraging of like, dude, like, just do whatever the fuck. He would always say this quote from, I forget the movie. What is the movie called where this guy buys a farm? He has a farm and there's these voices from the crop field telling him to build a baseball park.
Yeah. If you build it, they will come.
Exactly, yeah. So he would always say that, and that just stuck with me. It was like, if you just do whatever you're feeling, like whatever you want to happen is going to happen because you're doing what you want. So like anything that is a byproduct of that is going to be what you want to happen. And not might be as big as it could have been, but
right.
So yeah, that was
well, and that's the real secret to happiness in this game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And dude, I can't stress enough how much I value like happiness and fulfillment over money and over popularity. And that's like sounds so corny, like you hear like stay true, but it's fucking true, man.
Oh
like,
yeah. And
there's so many people, I see people all the time like that are not happy because they're just relentlessly giving in to like all this shit, and it gets to a point. I feel like when I was talking to Job outside of Whataburger, I was at the crossroads, and there's a lot of people that have gone too far now. So if they want to be on some more them shit, it's not going to go over well because they're already too far in that direction, and they know that, and it's a very depressing, crippling feeling,
This comes up a lot in this show, man. It's what we do. There's so much anxiety and stress and just struggle that goes into it. So if we're not doing what makes us happy, then what are we really doing? Why don't we all go be accountants? You
essentially just summed up the whole thing I was talking about with like Adam and Benito and everybody. They're like, it's like, what am I really doing here? You know, like, because I'm not entirely happy. I know I could be more fulfilled, and I really am scared of going too far down this path because it can be a dark ass place. People fucking kill themselves. People get into drugs.
Yep.
Like, it's just, I'd rather be well off and very happy than rich and fucking hollow and empty,
100%, man.
It just doesn't, and I've learned a lot about money too, because I've made a fair amount of money, like I do the splice thing, I do, I can buy
selling
shit that I can buy shit I want to buy, not like a McLaren, but, within reason. And I've just learned, and that's a fairly new thing to me. So I learned a lot from going from having no money or spending money ever to that. And I just learned how much it's really not. It's the same concept of like when you're dying for that fucking Xbox 360 at Christmas, and then within a week to a month, it's like, it's just a fucking Xbox. I haven't touched the thing in a week, and I don't care about it anymore. So it's it's really no different at all with McLarens and mansions and whatever.
It's like, all the same shit at every level.
Some people are better at waking up every day and being very appreciative of where they are. Like, I find trouble being appreciative of, I guess just materialistic things.
I think it's better that way, man. I think that's something we can all aspire to. But
I would love a McLaren.
Yeah, sure. McLaren, you can sponsor both of us. That's cool.
But say like Getter. Getter's got fucking money. He's got a badass car. Like, he loves his car, but he's not like out here just doing ridiculous shit. That's like, and he's really honing in on what he wants to do, like on this next album.
That's the thing, man. And you can tell. We've mentioned a lot of people, but I think a lot of people are on that path right now. It's like, just electronic music is blown up. We all have more opportunities than maybe we did 5 years ago, and so that being the case, how do we live a life that we enjoy in this new paradigm?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, man. I'm glad you're out here doing it for yourself. I'm glad. It's inspirational for me, and I think for a lot of other people to see someone just kind of come, do what they want to do, stick to their guns, like build the world they want to live in. I think it's something we could all take a page from.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? We could keep going for hours, but I got to run in a minute.
Yeah, no problem.
Is there anything else we haven't covered? Anything you want to get out there? Anything people should be looking out for? Anything to plug?
Shit, I feel like we covered a lot. We
Yeah,
covered a
no,
lot
this
of
was good.
shit.
This was good. Obviously, album out right now.
Album out, listen
Tour
to it.
coming soon.
If you're into that kind of thing, tour. I'm planning on putting out like a little less serious EP very shortly after, probably like right after tour. You know, I don't know. I feel like I got to speak my piece.
Well, I'm glad we linked up for this. Shout out to the internet. Shout out to Twitter and Reddit for kind of linking us up.
Yeah.
That was funny how that worked.
Yep.
But yeah, this is great, man. We'll come back. We'll do a part 2.
Sure.
Have fun on tour.
Thanks, brother.
All right.
Peace.
All right, that's the show. Shout out to Medasin. Thanks for having me over to the studio, man. Great to talk to you. I really do hope we can do that again soon. If Medasin is coming through your city, do not miss him. Do not forget to grab the new album, Irene. All of those links are going to be in the description of this episode. My name is Willy Joy. Shout out to everybody out there listening. Don't forget, you can hit me up backtobackpod@gmail.com or at Willy Joy or at backtobackpod on all social media. Man, we've got a good run of guests coming up. Stay tuned. Stay locked. I hope everybody out there is doing well. Have a great week. Take care of each other. Do something fun. That's it. I love you. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.